This week on The Destination Angler. You were telling me before the show that you hear these bears at night sometimes too.
Oh yeah, because we are close to the water, so you hear them walking through the water. Splash, splash, splash. You'll hear sometimes the brothers or two big males fighting. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to sleep to the sound is literally, within 100 yards, just roar, and the sound of breaking bushes
Really?
and splashes.
Oh my gosh!
And you're just in your tent, and it's Alaska, so it doesn't really get dark. It's like twilight. It's midnight. And you're just in your tent and it's not fully dark and you're just hearing all of this activity. And it's just like, you just have to kind of like be cool with it.
Welcome to the Destination Angler Podcast, the podcast for anglers who travel. And I'm your host, Steve Haig. We go right to the source, the local guides and experts, to build your knowledge of top fishing locations around North America. It's a big world out there. Now go and fish it.
I'm going away for a while, but I'll be back soon. Whoa, whoa.
Hey anglers, welcome back to another episode of The Destination Angler, brought to you by Anglers Coffee, perfecting the coffee experience for the fly fishing community and anglers everywhere with small batch coffee delivered to your doorstep. It's darn near perfect. And by Trout Routes, the #1 fishing app, helping you find new trout waters so you spend less time on the road and more time doing what you love, trout fishing. Coming up on the Destination Angler, we're headed to the Wolverine State. That's Michigan and the Manistee River for some tremendous steelhead, salmon, and brown trout fishing. After that, we journey to fly fishing Mecca, better known as Twin Bridges, Montana, to explore the world-famous rivers there. And be sure to backcast to catch the last episode of The Destination Angler on the Wind River Range in Wyoming. With over 2,000 alpine lakes, the winds are where to go for a rugged adventure in the largest golden trout in the West. Hey, and remember to hit that subscribe button to catch all the Destination Angler podcasts coming your way. And if you like the show, please tell a buddy. Want to be first to know about new episodes? Well, head on over to the Destination Angler website and sign up. Our winner this week for the free year subscription to Trout Routes is Bob from Aldie, Virginia. Congratulations, Bob, and thanks for listening. And today our destination is Intricate Bay Lodge on Lake Iliamna, Alaska. And our guest is backcountry fly fishing guide and professional photographer Abe Blair, manager of the Outpost. Lake Iliamna is the 8th largest lake in North America and boasts the largest sockeye salmon run in the world, not to mention a dozen of the finest rainbow trout rivers in Alaska. But you better keep your head on a swivel, because Alaskan brown bears here are thick. And man, does Abe have some stories about that. Abe grew up in Oregon, where he discovered fly fishing and had what he calls a life-changing injury at the age of 18, where he shattered his skull in a go-kart accident. Fortunately, he made a full recovery and has been fly fishing and photographing the world ever since. In the summers, he leads backcountry trips for the Outpost, and in the winters, runs his gallery in Lake Tahoe. And let me tell you, his photos are stunning. Today, Abe shares stories of massive salmon runs and giant rainbows, a very close call with a brown bear, guiding Jimmy Carter and his Secret Service guys, and a very demanding CEO, along with great tips on indicator fishing and how to take eye-popping photographs of wildlife and scenery with your iPhone. So buckle your seatbelts, because this one's a wild ride. Welcome to the show, Abe. Great to have you.
Oh man, can't thank you enough for having me on. I've been excited all month to get this recorded.
Yeah, well, me too, because man, I've been thinking about doing another Alaska show for a long time, and I wanted to do something a little different, rather than covering another lodge experience, and that's kind of what you do. Like you're this backcountry adventure travel guy, running this outpost for Intricate Bay Lodge. So, but before we dive into that, I wanted to ask you, tell us more about that go-kart accident. What happened?
Oh, classic 18 years old, king of the world kind of age and phase. Just graduated high school, and my buddy had a few acres and a customized go-kart. So we were just jumping it, because what else would a bunch of 18-year-old dudes do? So, just one-upping each other, faster, farther, and I took it too far. Went over the landing and nose dived into the flats, essentially missing the landing, and the engine was in the back. So momentum threw me forward, and right side of my face hit the dirt, and the engine hit the left backhand side of my head and just smashed it with between the dirt. And
Holy
no
smokes.
seatbelt, no helmet, and luckily one of my friends was very diligent response. He ran straight to the phone and called 911, and the rest of my buddies did what they could, and I passed out just as the ambulance showed up and woke up 2 days later.
Oh, wow. And the doctors gave you kind of a bad prognosis, didn't they?
Yeah, I think about a week after that, they said, and I should have died and at least had been paralyzed, and they expected me to recover to a comfortable life on the couch. I had lost a tremendous amount of my equilibrium, so I literally couldn't walk, and damaged a lot of my vocal cords, so I couldn't talk. So I spent 6 months doing various speech and physical therapies to
Wow.
try to recover as best as possible.
Well, now, and here you are, a full-time photographer, fly fishing guide, manager of a lodge, and you're 30 trips in to Alaska. So it sounds like you made a full recovery.
I think so. I attribute all of it to just my stubbornness. I'm not a good listener. I just do what I want. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't want to be on the couch. I wanted to do something else. So this is what I'm doing.
Well, tell us about Bristol Bay. I mean, Bristol Bay is a huge area in Alaska, right? But where is Bristol Bay and where is Lake Iliamna?
Well, so we'll kind of start wide. So we've got Alaska, and then Anchorage. I think everybody can kind of find that on a map. And to the west of Anchorage is essentially the beginning of the Aleutian Islands. That's that long chain of islands that sticks out of Alaska. Just on the other side of where that chain of islands begins is the Bristol Bay area. And so, yeah, it's very large, a good maybe 15, 20% of the state of Alaska. But then as you start to zoom in, you'll find King Salmon, which is a larger town within the region. And if you kind of zoom in a little more, you'll find Lake Iliamna, the 8th largest lake in North America, is about 60 or 70 miles to the northeast of King Salmon.
Huh.
And our lodges are tucked in on the eastern side of that lake, kind of up towards the mountain range. The lake is so large that literally the western side is full tundra, and the eastern side is like the Pacific Northwest, mountainous, pine trees, waterfalls. It's really beautiful on our side.
So it crosses a whole zone, essentially. You go from forest to tundra in the course of that lake. Okay. And so you've got runs of sockeye salmon that come up from the ocean through that lake then, so it's all connected into the ocean, correct?
Yeah. So we've got the lake has the outflowing river, which is called the Kwijak, and that is a top tier 30-inch plus trout destination. It's been on the map for quite some time, and that river flows straight into the Kwijak Bay, which is a sub bay of the Bristol Bay region. So we get a large percentage of the record sockeye runs come up that river. They come into Lake Iliamna and then disperse to all of the tributaries that flow into Lake Iliamna.
Okay. And so you're fishing the rivers that are coming in and out of Lake Iliamna. Is that correct?
Yeah, a few of them. So what we consider our direct home water is the Copper River, and not to be mistaken with the Copper River salmon, that river near Valdez. This is the Copper River for trout, and that flows into Iliamna, and we can take jet boats directly to that river.
Nice.
And then from the lodges, we fly out primarily every day to other lakes that essentially all flow into Bristol Bay. And it's all just lakes and rivers progressively until you get to the ocean.
Oh, wow. No kidding. Sounds like an absolute dream spot. So what is it that makes it such a, just such a fantastic fishery? It's probably a lot of things, but how would you answer that?
Well, I mean, it's the largest salmon habitat in the world, largest salmon runs in the world. The region truly is the world's producer of salmon. in terms of percentages. So everything really pivots and is based off of the salmon. The bears, they wait for the salmon. They hibernate. They get up. They eat grass and whatnot. They wait till the salmon, and then they can fatten themselves up. The trout, same deal. They're eating dry flies, mice, nymphs, whatever they can until the salmon show up, and then they can eat the eggs. The fishermen, the trout hunters, they wait till the salmon show up, then they come up, they fill our lodge, they start chasing. Like, everything truly revolves around the salmon up there. And you could follow that lineage back into the local native culture. It's a staple that has really, without it, there wouldn't be habitation, I don't think, in the region. So,
yeah, what do you know about the history of the region?
You know, I wish I knew more. One of my motivations now as the new full-time lodge manager is actually to get some more knowledge on the area. But, you know, it's all native corporation intermixed within national land. You know, a lot of people don't actually know that Katmai National Park, one of the largest national parks in the system, is actually leased. We lease that land from the native corporation and give, to manage it for them.
Yeah. Yeah. This area's just got to be absolutely stunning, but can you take a crack at kind of just describing what does it look like up there? What's it like?
Well, so like I said, we are on the edge of kind of the tundra and that kind of low boreal forest where we get into like more of a Pacific Northwest feel. We spend a fair amount of our time on the edges of the tundra and the kind of more what we call the high country of the tundra, which is maybe 1,500 feet above sea level. So it's very relatively flat sections and kind of rolling hills with granite and or some basalt kind of sticking out, intermixed within, very soft tundra.
Yeah.
Small creek drainages everywhere. Everything is just flowing and draining into a larger body of water, and eventually those bodies of water are large enough that we find ourselves fishing on them. But some of our access points we'll land on a tundra lake or pond essentially, and then hike upwards of, a quarter mile, sometimes a half mile or farther to get to a river.
Okay.
And then we might hike a few miles down that river and then get back up on the tundra and go to a different lake. And that would be our pickup lake with the airplane in the afternoon. So
yeah, that's cool.
It's right on the edge, lots of tundra, I would say.
Okay.
And a lot of shrubs, trees, aspens, willows in and around a lot of these tundra-based rivers. So you're flying over what looks pretty desolate, but then when you're in the water on the creek, it's bushy, it's shrubby, it's tighter quarters. It's really fun.
Oh, interesting. All right. I want to talk more about the rivers, and we're going to get to your photography too, because I really want to dig into that because you're an amazing photographer. Folks, you got to get out and check out his website. Abe's website is absolutely incredible. So your job in the summers, man, you're camping out all summer. Is that right?
Yeah. So I was a full-time guide in Oregon for years in my younger 20s, and then kind of retired and tried to take on a slightly more responsible role in life and whatnot. And then it turns out a friend of mine needed help at a lodge in Alaska, basically building an overnight program, and that was my specialty in my previous days, and had always wanted to work in Alaska. So went up, tested it out, and did 2 weeks. We survived. Nobody died. We brought all the guides back, all the boats back, and I decided that was kind of cool. And it just morphed into more and more and more, and now it's the whole season, and I'm in charge.
Yeah, how about that?
It's a spectacular trip. Very few people do what we do in terms of the backcountry camping. Very, very special.
Yeah, well, tell us more about that, because I'd love to hear, like, what is the experience you're giving your clients?
I mean, essentially, we load up all that we need for camping into the beavers. It's usually about 3 airplane loads, and then the people. And we will put in at a headwater lake, assemble our gear, inflate the boats, and depart this headwater lake and float our way out and down a river. And the farther downstream we go, we start to intersect the salmon, which then we find the trout. So we pitch a tent and start fishing.
Okay.
And we literally are camped in the bear's backyard. So those first few days of the season, we set up a camp, and the bears haven't seen us, so they walk around a bend and they're just looking at us like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And we have to tell them that we've moved in and ask them nicely to go around, and they figure it out.
Yeah, that works, huh?
It does. And we have, we carry bear spray, we have guns, we have bear fences, and I think that it's all warranted and useful. But I think it's more about the guests see that and feel that comfort. But it's really our knowledge as guides, our time and tenure. We recognize the bears. I recognize a bear and say, "Oh, that bear has 2 cubs. That one has 3. That one's got a limp. That one," like, we recognize them. And so we get to learn their behaviors, where they actually like to fish and don't fish.
Huh. Have you had some have you had some bears? Okay, here's this one bear that's pretty aggressive, folks. Get ready.
No. I have personally had some pretty scary experiences that now I can look back on and sort of laugh at, in the sense of just rookie mistakes, being green, not knowing the bear's behavior well enough, and or just not paying attention.
Okay.
And we can tell some of those stories later. But yeah, when the guests have been around so far, so good. Things have been smooth.
Good.
It's just a unique place. I mean, I don't know anywhere else in the world that you literally can wake up, unzip your tent, and see a 500 to 700 pound bear less than 100 feet from your front door, not giving a care that you are camped out right there.
Yeah. And you can just watch them, just observe them through the tent.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I filmed and photographed these bears literally framed through the tent of, the window in my tent. Yeah. And as long as we do not block their access to the salmon, they're fine. That's what it's all about.
All right. So how would you block their access to the salmon? Are you standing on a bear trail, or what are you doing if you're...
Well, essentially, the bears are going to walk right up the edge of the bank. The salmon, when they die, when the water drops, those carcasses are along the edge. The salmon, the bears need access to the river. So, like, when we camp, we actually pull the boats like 50 to 100 feet up the gravel bar away from the river's edge.
Okay.
So that there's nothing blocking the bears. The bears can't see that well. They just see this large obstruction that wasn't there a few hours ago, and they'll just touch it, not intentionally, trying to pop the boat, but they're big, they're strong, and they'll pop the boat with just one tap of their paws. So we just get out of their way. So we'll camp on a big gravel bar, kind of in the middle. So there's room for the bears to go around to the riverside or to the willow side, and keep ourselves out in the open and practice bear safety. So we have a electric fence we put around the kitchen and the boats themselves, and all toiletries and food, anything like that all goes in the fence at night. And then we, set the tents up accordingly and position guides kind of on the outsides. So we always have an upriver guide camp and a downriver guide camp. And so we're kind of there to protect everything. But the reality is that, the bears walk right by your tent. You'll wake up to a steamer 10 feet from your door, but he was just walking by. Didn't bother you, so you didn't need to know.
Yeah. Hey anglers, are you looking for a darn near perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Then do yourself a favor and check out anglerscoffee.com. That's right, Anglers Coffee is made by anglers for anglers, delivered to your doorstep, one batch at a time. They start with the very best coffee beans selected for their great flavor and responsible growing methods. Then each batch is roasted fresh daily. The result is a wide selection of roast styles that will satisfy the most discerning coffee lover. And now you can enjoy Angler's Coffee anywhere, anytime with the Dry Dropper single-serving coffee in a tea bag. Just add water. And this isn't your mother's instant coffee. It's a single serving of carefully dark roasted, fresh ground and nitro sealed coffee. A percentage of each sale goes to some great nonprofit organizations that directly impact the fly fishing community. So head on over to anglerscoffee.com to check out their great selection of coffee and the organizations they support. If you're not 100% satisfied, they'll give you your money back, no questions asked. That's Angler's Coffee. It's darn near perfect. And you were telling me before the show that you hear these bears at night sometimes too.
Oh yeah, because we are close to the water, so you hear them walking through the water. Splash, splash, splash. You'll hear sometimes the brothers or two big males fighting. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to sleep to the sound is literally, within 100 yards, just roar, and the sound of breaking bushes and splashes.
Oh my gosh!
And you're just in your tent, and and it's Alaska, so it doesn't really get dark. It's like twilight. It's midnight. And you're just in your tent and it's not fully dark and you're just hearing all of this activity. And it's just like, you just have to kind of like be cool with it.
Yeah.
I remember a guest, we did a 3-night camp and he didn't sleep at all the first 2 nights. Like literally the first night he didn't sleep at all. So anxiety about the bears. The second night, he literally just sat in the chair outside of his tent all night and just watched the bears, but never slept. And then finally, after that observation, realized they were no threat to him, and he slept like a baby that last night.
I'll bet. Yeah, I think it'd take some convincing for me to be convinced that that bear that's 100 feet away isn't going to just change his mind and come over here and, mess me up somehow. I don't know.
Yeah. It's part of my job is to help people ease into that.
Yeah, calm them down.
Calm them down, just keep them educated. I'm a pretty no BS kind of guy in terms of stuff. I don't candy coat things, and I just say this is what we're going to do. This is what we don't want to do, and lead and really try to lead by example. And so the guests will see me walk. I'm always in the lead. I'm there. I'm always very communicative and whatnot. And, gaining that trust of the client is key in my line of work, my job. And so it's something I've just learned to do quickly.
Well, what do you not want to do? You said, what things would you not, what's on that list of things not to do in bear country like this?
Don't walk towards the bear. That's, don't approach the bears. They may approach you, but don't approach the bear themselves.
Yeah.
Stay in a group, always stay together, walk close together, especially as you see a bear, you want to be, close, like shoulder to shoulder almost, so that you are a larger, louder mass.
Sure.
Which leads into the third, which is be loud, make noise and which is easy to forget. When we're hiking up a creek, you're winded, you're looking for trout, you're thinking about fishing, but you want to be making noise and talking and hey bear or having a conversation.
Oh, you're doing all that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a running joke within some of my clients and whatnot, because my name is Abe Blair. So it's from a distance. Hey bear, Abe Blair.
I got you.
So yeah, there's a bit of a running joke that they'll just yell my name over and over.
Say your name over again. Yeah. So this is a question I have, because I've had people tell me that in bear country, and I've done a lot of fishing in bear country, and that idea of staying close. When you're fishing, you spread out. You typically spread out. So how does that work? Because a bear doesn't say, "Hey, I'm coming your way. You guys better bunch up now."
Well, so when we're on the water, we're actually focus fishing. Yeah, we're going to be spread out 50 feet apart, so that we can, essentially jointly 2-step our way, down the run. Say we start at the head of a piece of water and got one guy right at the top of the ristle and one guy a little ways down, and we're going to fish our way through the pool. So we'll just kind of work our way down. I'm generally always attached to one of these guys, either upstream or downstream, and always reminding guys to keep their heads on a swivel. But I'm also constantly looking, I'm tying a clinch knot. So it's, 3 twists, left to right, look, 3 more twists, left to right, look, through the loop, pull, look left, look right, look over my shoulder.
Okay, we're good to go.
Yeah.
These are what, Alaskan brown bears? Is that right?
Yes. Yep. So it's a coastal brown bear. We refer to them as grizzlies. I think technically a grizzly maybe is more defined as more of an inland bear, generally associated as the more aggressive of the species. I believe genetically they're pretty much the same. It's just that our bears are a little bit more lower elevation, attached to the coastal environment, which is the salmon. Those inland bears are going to be more aggressive because they don't have as bountiful of a food source.
Oh, okay. That's probably a big part of it then.
A tremendous part. That's what's unique about why we get to do what we do there.
What's your best bear story? I know you told me one about some bears sniffing somebody's toes, but maybe you've got a different one.
Well, I'll tell you one of the definitive I needed a new pair of underwear story. About second season, last trip of the year, I had done 5 trips in a row. I was burned out. I was tired. I was in a routine. And so I actually was listening to music on my iPod and unloading the boat to the final camp, ready to set up. We'd been there a bunch, and just literally walked right into and on top of a massive, probably 700-800 pound boar. And I jumped him at about 7 yards. He was asleep and just came up, pissed off. You just woke me up. What the hell? And I had a shovel in one hand and a small tent that I was going to set the bathroom up with, and obviously just dropped that. Had my chest mounted Glock 10 millimeter and, drew instantly.
Wow.
And started talking to the bear. Hey,
Calming him down.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Trying to get him to chill.
Did he raise up on his hind legs?
No. So he was up, standing aggressively, and to me, this is, slow motion. This all happens probably in a matter of a few seconds. But I've got a bead right between his eyes, and I take a step backwards while talking to him, and he does a false lunge charge, takes one step, lunges at me. So I took one step back trying to gain a yard, and he took that yard right back. Wow. And I talked it out again, another couple of seconds, words, and the whole time I'm trying to talk him down while thinking about the red tape. I'm in the national park. You can't legally shoot a bear unless you're bleeding.
Oh,
that's the rule. That's the law. So that's going through my head. I'm just freaking out. But take another step. He lunges again. And, at that point, new underwear time.
Yeah.
And
right.
I'm shaking. I'm at that point, I'm really terrified. I haven't fired at the bear and I don't know what to do. I talk it out again and I take another step back, and he lets me, he gives that to me. I take another step, and then he relaxes and he turns around and he wanders off in the bush. And turns out he ended up going to the other end of the island and went back to sleep. But,
wow.
He leaves. I walk back to my boat, just that emotional adrenaline, like that just the drop, and grabbed my sat phone. And I called my wife and just told her I thought that was it.
I quit.
And gathered myself and then went back to work and went back setting up camp,
Yeah. What are you going to do? I mean, you're up there, man. It's not like you can go, I quit, I'm out of here.
Yeah. I'm the boss. I'm in charge. I got to get hospitality built and set so that my guests don't know that I just about died and need new pair of underwear, and we got to make it look like nothing happened.
Did you ever tell them?
I did. Yep. I told the guides first, and then they overheard the story, and because there was all the bear prints and the tracks, because it was a pretty sandy area, so you could see the imprints of the lunge, the claws, all of that. And then as we were settling in, we walked up to the upper part of the island, and obviously I recognized that bear. I'm like, "Yo, no, that's him." So
Oh, wow. You
Uh,
saw him again. No kidding.
yeah, yeah.
Man, that's quite a story.
And now I look at it. That was my fault. I shouldn't have had music on. I should have been aware. I should have been more attentive. Like every single aspect of that interaction was my fault, and it was a rookie mistake. And
Yeah.
you know, luck. We learn from it. It's not happened again. I have actually been fortunate to not really have a oh crap moment like that ever since.
Yeah. No kidding. Well, good for you. I'm glad you're okay. It sounds fun now, but I got to believe that was it was not fun as you were going through it.
I was just talking to a friend of mine in relation to the Alaska experience, and the float planes and the bears, and basically that we have no intention in risking our life and limb and avoiding and dealing with near death. Like that is by no means our intention ever out there. But I think it's like a pretty regular experience in some capacity. It's just
They're out there.
the nature of up there. The
Yeah.
gentleman I was talking to is a professional snowboarder that I used to work with, and we talked about it like snowboarding a big mountain in Alaska. That you're at the top and you have a plan and you have the skills, but sometimes the mountain just doesn't let you do that plan, and you gotta kind of wing it. You get to the bottom and you're like, wow, I almost died, but I didn't. So yay, that was great. And there's something about that I'm drawn to.
Yeah, you must be, right? Huge news, folks. The #1 fishing app, and I'm talking Trout Routes here, has been updated to include the entire lower 48. That's 50,000 streams mapped and classified into 4 categories and 350,000 hand-curated public access points marked and ready for you to explore. There's nothing more exciting than finding that new trout stream or access point. I'm a huge fan of Trout Routes because they make it so easy. Say goodbye to stumbling around country roads looking for your next spot, because Trout Routes provides every detail you need for each stream, including public and private bridges, stream flows, trail access, where to park, camping opportunities, boat ramps, and more. No service, no problem. You can save maps for offline use. With Trout Routes, I've found dozens of new streams and access points I never would have known about. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for Trout Routes today on your Apple or Android phone. So do you guys, the camping experience now, you talked about tents. Are these like big wall tents? Are people sleeping on cots? What's that all like?
We using it like a high grade backpacker sleeping pads, and a really bomb proof tent, actually referred to as the Outfitter, and it was designed in Alaska.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's, I believe, technically a 6-person tent. We put 2 guests in there. So there's ample room for a nice size sleeping pad and your gear. So you can fully wader up. You can't stand up in the tent, but if you can put your waders on laying on your back, there's plenty of room. And then we have a very large dining tent. That's a 16-person tent. So we put a 6-person dining tent in there, and sometimes 1 or 2 guides might sleep in the back corner. And sometimes we'll set up the kitchen in the front vestibule. Other times we'll have the kitchen out just outside, kind of all weather dependent.
Ah, cool. Are you the cook?
So, yep. On those trips I do it all. I'm head guide, chef, everything. It's a fun to do.
Yeah. What's your favorite dinner to make?
I mean, it's hard to go wrong with the classic steak. I love the fact that we always generally do the steak on an open grill, even if it's pouring down rain. So grilling steak in the rain with grizzly bears in view, that's pretty cool. But
sign me up, man.
For a good wholesome meal, I on a rain day, I love my stroganoff, my beef stroganoff.
Wow. All right. So you were hauling grates up there and pots and pans and throwing them all in the beaver and loading them on the, okay.
We might do a burger for lunch, stuff like that. But generally I like to make it as close to a lodge type experience in terms of the dining as we realistically can.
Okay.
So, a great example, we had a big rain day in a camp. And so we didn't venture far from camp. And so we came in for lunch, and we just, rather than just doing the regular cold cut lunch that was, our usual, I decided to whip up a bunch of grilled cheese and ham, like let's step it up. Let's have a warm lunch because we can, and
That sounds great.
stuff like that. So we're always trying to level it up.
Well, let's switch gears because this is a fishing show. How is the fishing up there? I bet it's pretty phenomenal.
It's lifetime. It's like the short version, the one-liner is, I can't tell you how many times over the course of a week I've been with a guest who catches their biggest fish of their life multiple times a day, starting on Monday, and we fish until Friday. Their first trout's 19 inches, then 20, then 21, then 22, and they're just freaking out. And that's day one. And then day two, it's like they don't really care about anything under 21 inches, and they're looking for 23 or 24. And
so you
by
spoil them.
Wednesday or Thursday, maybe we're talking about the shoulders of the fish. Wow, that's only a 5-pounder. I don't want a picture unless it's 7 pounds. Like, the progression, the experience is insane. Some days are hard. Some days you might only catch 5 or 6 trout, each of them being, a lifetime-esque fish for a lower 48 angler. And then you'll have that day where you can't get them off the line fast enough to catch another one, and if you lose count, it's 50.
Really? Oh my gosh. And
Yeah.
Do you have anglers, because it stays light, it just, like you said, it just gets kind of dusk in the middle of the night. Do you have anglers that just don't want to quit? They're out there till all hours of the night?
I have a few who talk as if they may never stop, but after a full day with us in general, it's very few guys, re-waiter up after dinner, after a day on the water. I'd say maybe less than 10% of our guests will make that evening push.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're so literally, as guests and anglers, they're so fat and happy in the sense of their day. They caught a couple of lifetime trout. They just had an amazing meal.
Yeah.
And often, a lot of times as guides, we'll take that time maybe after dinner, 9:00 in the evening, and maybe we'll waiter back up, or if it's not raining, we'll do my famous flip-flop fishing, where we fish in our flip-flops, so there's no waiting, and so we got to cast farther, and we get to kind of show off as guides and demonstrate some of the techniques that we're trying to teach people and show them practically. And often our guests will sit back and they watch and learn, and they see us catch a few fish, and they're happy, and then everybody's just happy. It's a really, really fun time.
That sounds amazing. What kind of trout are these?
Primarily rainbows. Later in the season, and some rivers we do get into some more chars, and then we get grayling as well. But primarily it's the rainbow, the trophy rainbows.
And tell me about the rivers, because it sounds like you take the float plane up and you land on a lake, and then drift into a river or an outflow somewhere? Or are you landing on rivers too? Tell me about all that.
Well, so I'll start on the big water. We'll fish the Kwijak, which is that outflowing river I was talking about out of Lake Iliamna.
Yeah.
Huge, very large river, maybe 100 yards across, very large. You can see the bottom many times, but very big, very swift. And so there, we're fishing out of the classic 16-foot John boats, the jet boat flat bottoms with 30 and 40 horse outboards. And we will position the boat above a run, or, into the wall, above the water we want to fish. And then we will get off the tiller and shift to oars, and we will back row the boat down and through these runs, having an angler in the front and in the back, fish through the runs. And that's a big water, big technique. And that's where we catch the 30 inchers, 32 inchers. And then as we downsize, we start loading 10 to 12-foot rafts into the floats of the beaver, and we'll fly to headwater lakes or tundra lakes and inflate and assemble the boats remotely, and then float down the river to another, LZ, where we have a coordinated pickup time.
Okay.
And break the boats down, pack everything up. Airplane shows up, we pack everything up. 20 minutes later, we're at the lodge and de-waiter and have some appetizers. And then the other trips are what we call the walk and wade. That's my personal favorite. They're called the walk and wade, but I refer to them as trout hunting. And that's where we'll take the airplane and we'll get dropped off somewhere, often at the mouth of a small creek. And then we literally walk straight up the creek. And we are trying to sneak up on the trout from that downriver position. And we're talking small water, knee deep, 40 feet across, tiny water. And we're trout hunting. So I've got two guys on my shoulder right behind me, and we're going up the bank. We're cruising along, and I'm looking, and I see a fish, and I just instantly, I hold up my hand. I'm like, stop. And I look back. Who's next? Who's up? All right, Bob, you're up. Okay, come here. And I have him slowly walk up to me, and then I get him in position, and I start having him see if he can see that fish. So I'm their eyes, but I want to teach them how to see the fish, what I'm looking at, get them into position, and then, get them into the cast, work their cast into the right position, and then catch that fish.
Yeah, nice. Tell me about your setup, rods, reels, tippets, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I thought that was a great way to kind of transition. So we generally, for the trophy trout season, we're running the beads, 9-foot leaders, indicators. And one thing I always tell my guests, always have, in the lower 48, generally, with the indicator, the rule is if it twitches, if it moves, if it farts, you set the hook, right?
Yep.
So in Alaska, we have to unbreak. We have to break a few standard traditions and rules, essentially, from the lower 48. And one of those is the indicator. I like to use the indicator more as like a boat. It's a visual guide to me where that bead is, generally 6 to 9 feet upriver from the indicator.
Oh, okay.
So
bead, you're talking about like a egg pattern?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm asking the guest to cast, say we spotted the trout, and I want to, and I get them to cast in the right area. And a common line that people talk about me saying is if they make a good cast, I'll walk them through it. I say, okay, perfect cast, you're good. Okay, strip. All right, he's under the indicator now. That means the indicator went directly over the fish. Everything is good. And I say, okay, he's under the indicator now. Wait, he's going to eat. Wait. And I can actually, at the moment that fish, before he even moves, tell the angler that it's time, set the hook, and it all comes together. And literally, I walk them through the whole time. I tell them when to set. They don't even know. And bam, fish of your lifetime.
So you're saying that the indicator is not even moving. You just know that egg pattern is dragging a few feet behind.
Yep.
Is that what you're saying?
So the fish, they bite so fast that if you wait for the indicator to twitch, you've missed the fish.
Oh, really?
So I'm watching the fish and I'm watching the body language. I'm waiting to see the white of his mouth. The minute I see the white of his mouth, the indicator hasn't twitched, but I can yell there or yell set.
Right.
And a responsive guest, bam, fish on.
Got to pay attention.
And that kind of brings into that's why I do what I do. I'm a lifetime fisherman. I've caught plenty of trout. I don't think there's such thing as too many, but I've caught enough. So as an angler, I want to challenge myself. So what better way to challenge myself than to fish through a guy I just met that morning, the fish that I can see in the river without touching the rod. I need to use words and work with this gentleman or this woman, get them to catch the fish that I want them to catch. And if they do that, it's the same as me catching it. But I've already done that so many times. I'd rather see that look in their eyes, that expression, that cheer, that hoot and holler that they give. To me, that's success.
You've reached, I don't know what we would call that, but you've reached the highest level, I think, of an angler, who can actually get as much or more joy out of watching somebody else's success than doing it yourself.
Yeah. I contemplate where I am as an angler more now. I mean, I'm 30 years into fly fishing. I'm 44. I definitively was fly fishing at the age of 10.
It's awesome.
I've got a lot of years with it. And I think at this point, if it's not a new species or a new technique that I've never experienced, I would rather watch and help somebody else catch fish, I think, as an angler.
Yeah. You're kind of a born guide, or maybe that's something that a learned guide. Hey, shifting gears, I wanted to hear about some of the clients you have, because you shared with me before the show that you have had some really, some famous people and some really interesting clients. Can you talk about some of those clients?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of guides over the years we get to meet some cool people. I know some folks have guided actors and various other folks. But my coolest probably was President Carter.
Oh my gosh.
And I actually wasn't guiding him. I was the photographer for a trip, but we hosted President Carter and his wife, a couple of their friends at the lodge. They booked the whole place. We had 3 Secret Service on staff. They got to fish a little bit. And so the stories that Mr. Carter, shared and had were phenomenal. And, one particular evening, his wife, Rosalind, went to bed a little early and he wasn't ready for bed. So he actually came into the bar and sat down with me and the Secret Service guys and told some old stories, told some stories about when he was on the submarine, told some stories about when he was in the White House. Like,
no kidding. That's awesome.
Unbelievable. Such an amazingly humble human being, outside of any political perspective, just as a human being, he is one of a kind. And
I've heard that about him.
Really inspirational.
Yeah.
So a true sportsman. And, but then the other spectrum, is a client that owns the largest investment firm in the world, BlackRock Investing. A gentleman named Larry Fink. He's a 6-year returning guest of ours. Him and a gang of 11 guys come out, and they're a phenomenal group.
Yeah. When you first had them, did you have any idea who these? I mean, you probably knew Jimmy Carter, but did you know who Larry Fink was? And you just started. He's just another guy you're guiding, and then halfway through the week, you figured out this guy.
It was.
Yeah.
Yep. It was. It was. Oh, we got these guys showing up. They're coming in on a private jet, and they want the trip to be top notch. And that was what I was called up for was to elevate the experience.
Like, don't screw it up, huh?
Yeah. And so before we even really met them, their gear was flown out to our base camp first, and we're waist deep in the river, in the lake. And I'm new. I'm the new guy. I don't know anybody. And we're all just kind of the crew. We're all learning each other. And anyway, the pilot hands me a case of wine. It's in a wooden crate and says, "Don't drop this. I was told it's worth $5,000.
Oh my gosh.
And then I have to wade that back to shore. And then we, have to then float it for 6 days down the river. But it wasn't just one of those cases. It was 5.
Wow. Okay. So they lived high style. Were you nervous around these people once you figured out who they were?
No, I don't know how I was somehow maybe being how I was raised or just in the environment I came up in, that I have not necessarily been one to put people on a pedestal necessarily. So I did, I found out who Larry is. And then obviously after the trip, I do research and find out who everybody on the trip was. And it was like, wow. And then they've been coming back. So I actually literally just exchanged an email with Larry yesterday. I'm putting a book together, an annual book about their trip.
Oh, cool.
And they're all real guys. They're all real people. They all have a story. I'm excited and I feel privileged to hear a lot of stories.
Yeah, you get to know these guys. And what do they like to guide? I mean, these are people who are used to giving directions, not getting directions. How's that work?
It can be tricky. Typically, so like we'll talk about Larry a little bit, and if Larry ends up hearing this, he knows I love him and he's great.
I was going to say,
guy, but
hope he continues with the trip.
I think last year, after the 6 years of guiding, I received, they have an award night every year, biggest fish, most fish. And they had a new award that they came up with. Anyway, I received the Lifetime Guiding Larry Achievement Award because no guide has guided him so many years in a row without saying, I'll never guide that guy again.
Oh my gosh. Do you know what they're talking about though? Or did you feel like he wasn't too bad?
No, he is a very powerful guy. What I like about guiding with him is that we'll be fishing for 15 minutes. We'll be working a trout. And what makes him so successful in life, it reflects down to him. After 10 minutes of fishing a bead, he'll tell me we need to switch. Even though I know that bead is going to work, he needs a switch. We need to go to an 8 mil. We need to go to a tangerine. We were fishing a cheese color. Like, we need to switch. But the funny part is that over the years, I sometimes will switch to the exact same bead we were fishing, and he'll fish the exact same bead. But
he's not going to like hearing that. He's not going to like hearing that.
Oh, he knows. We joke
he does.
about it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's his nature, and that's why he is such a powerful and successful guy. Is that he'll accept no, but he much rather work the problem kind of a guy.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of cool.
I can appreciate that. And when you learn how a gentleman works like that, you can harness it and work with them. And so, yeah, I love fishing with him. It is stressful. When you get called up and told, okay, the big boss needs to catch the biggest fish of the week. He wants to win the tournament. Yeah, that's stressful.
Yeah. Don't mess it up. This week on Doing Good, we have the Mayfly Project, which is a national nonprofit organization that uses fly fishing as a catalyst to mentor and support children in foster care. Being a foster kid can be tough. Foster kids are 5 times more likely to have anxiety and 7 times more likely to have depression. By the time they are 24, 50% will have substance abuse issues. The Mayfly Project was founded in 2015 by Jess and Laura Westbrook to introduce foster kids to fly fishing. Those of us who fly fish know how anxiety and worry seem to disappear on the stream. By introducing kids to their local water ecosystems, the Mayfly Project hopes to connect kids with a lifelong and rewarding hobby that provides fun, adventure, self-esteem, and a connection with the outdoors. The Mayfly Project volunteers mentor foster kids through 5 sessions over 6 months, teaching them the basics of casting, tying knots, even tying flies. At the end of the program, each kid is outfitted with everything they need to fly fish on their own, including their own fly rod, pack, and flies. Pretty cool. This year, there are 62 projects in 34 states in the United Kingdom. If you'd like to get involved, head on over to the mayflyproject.com and see if there's a project near you. You can also give financially or with in-kind donations, such as flies, used waders, or old fly rods. The kids will thank you. All right, so I want to shift back to the Secret Service guys. What are the Secret Service guys? I always think of them being so stoic and tight-lipped, but are they just normal Joes?
They're like Navy SEALs in tuxedos. They are badass, flat out. Their stories, their experience, their training, and then their dedication. That, I talked to them a few times, and we were in the boat on a choppy water day. We were reflecting on our experience. It was gnarly boating and whatnot. And they were, without question, Mr. Carter falls out, bam, jump right out of the boat, waders on, they're head first into that boat. That boat's going 40. No, they don't hesitate. Their dedication to their protectee is unlike any dedication I've ever met, as a civilian.
God.
It's impressive.
How do they screen for that? Like, how do you and I probably don't know the answer to this, but you just wonder how they screen for that. Like, would this guy really take a bullet for the president?
And yeah, it's a hard long-term process to get into that for sure. But like I said, I met 3 of them, and each of them with a tremendously different background, but undeniable.
Yeah, that's cool.
They had one purpose in life. That was their job. That was their duty. And they never once missed a beat. They were always, What was really cool was, I think, their ability to not always be on protocol, on point, and yet be so personable, making jokes, making laughs. We're on the river, we're on the water, but at any point in time, a pack of bears or a pack of terrorists could have come out of the woods, and I had no doubt that they had the situation under control at all times. It was unbelievable.
Wow. That's fascinating. I've heard of people I've interviewed, I'd say 4 or 5 times now. Matter of fact, the Sequoia River I just did, that guy carried Rosalind Carter down a bank to put her in the water. So I keep hearing about Jimmy. I think I'm just going to call Jimmy Carter's camp and say, where have you fished? Because I want to do shows on all the places you've fished, because his name keeps popping up. But all right, so Abe, I want to shift gears, and folks, stick around here because we're going to talk about photography for a minute, because Abe is one of the best in the world. He's award-winning. Most of the time he's judging shows, just not entering shows. He makes his living in the wintertime off his gallery, which is called Aspen Glow, right? In Lake Tahoe, right?
Alpenglow.
Alpenglow. Thank you.
Like the color we see in the mountains, that orange light in the morning.
Okay. And I want to kind of get into your mind a little bit about how you go about your photography, because what you're doing is absolutely stunning.
Thank you. Well, I mean, it's similar to fly fishing. I mean, I got a fly rod when I was 10. I got a camera when I was 14. I got a snowboard at the same age, and a camera, a snowboard, and a fly rod. That's what paved the way for the life I live now, and I'm still passionate about all three of those. Without the camera, I wouldn't have been able to do what I do. I think that is the linchpin of my success.
Huh. Yeah, because you are making a living as a fishing guide and a photographer. Not many people can say that.
And I think that goes to some of that stubbornness I was talking about. People say you can't do that. Well, hold my beer, watch this.
Yeah, right.
I think that's how I operate. That mantra, that style, that's what motivates my photography. I'm a non-Photoshop guy. I don't fake it. I don't alter it.
Huh.
So I make it hard on myself. I shoot single images. I don't look for the easy out. I look for that. I like to do everything the hard way, because I find it to be more educational and then more rewarding.
Yeah. The hard way is the better way? Is that also true?
I don't think that's necessarily the best way to view it. I think the hard way is often more rewarding and can teach you more, can teach a person more about themselves and whatever they're working on.
Okay.
So I'm a stubborn guy, but I think I also would describe myself as kind of lazy, in the sense of I'm really efficient. So I'll be stubborn, but I don't waste my time.
Yeah, efficiency. All right, well, let me ask you about this, because I was on your YouTube channel, and I watched your video. I think you just posted this recently, called Behind the Shot. And so you got up before sunrise, and you're hiking through the snow with a headlamp on and talking about how awesome this is. And you was like, man, I just knew this is the day where I'm going to put this sunrise composition to rest. And as the sun was coming up, you were talking about this tree, and you were getting so excited that you're getting this shot. Of course, the photograph that you took was stunning, right? Up above, not Lake Tahoe, but one of the other lakes in that area. And I guess what really struck me was the amount of planning, because you'd been up to this place, I think, lots of times. So you really had to plan this shot, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, I've been there at least 30 times over the course of probably 5 or 6 years. I like to hike, so I'm always hiking around, and that's kind of scouting. I'm looking to see how deep the snow is, what color the leaves are at that time of year, all kinds of stuff in that respect. And then as a photographer and as a action sports photographer in my young 20s, we had to learn how to read weather. We had to learn how to read storms and predict when it was going to be a sunny day in the mountains, and when it was going to be worth driving hundreds of miles to get into the backcountry and capitalize on fresh snow. And so I've always been kind of a weatherman in the background.
Mm-hmm.
and our technology just keeps improving. So we've got more and more access to better forecasts that allow me to be a lot more surgical in my maneuvers. So that,
Okay.
like that morning, it's like, okay, this is going to be a good morning. Let's call the filmer. We got to pay the filmer. We got to organize all this.
The filmer's the guy, the filmer's the guy that's taking your picture, videotaping you taking the photography, right?
Exactly. So
Gotcha.
it's a big orchestrated plan, and I have to, I move with confidence now because of weather service apps, some of them private, some of them public, and then just my 30 years of experience reading weather to kind of know when to go. And I'm not 100%. I got tanked just a few weeks ago. I climbed a 2,000-foot mountain up on my split board at night, toured up in the dark, got to the top. It was blowing 30 miles an hour. My fingers were freezing, and a low cloud band came in, blocked all the light, and I didn't even pull the camera out of the bag.
Oh, is that bad? Oh my gosh. And I bet you're going to go back another day.
Oh, I am frothing to get back up there. I want a rebate. I know there's a great image up there, and
Yeah.
maybe it'll be tomorrow. Maybe it'll be in 4 years. That's my headspace. My headspace is just loaded with compositions, and I'm just constantly waiting and looking for all of the right ingredients and alignments to come together.
So describe your photography. How would you describe your photography?
I had big landscapes, big prints. That's kind of my specialty. I like to utilize color and unique techniques essentially to invoke more of like a mood than a like locational aspect, in the sense of like, here is Lake Tahoe or here is Yosemite. I want to portray more of a mood, whether it's what I was feeling that day or using the visual elements in front of me to create something that either makes you feel warm or cold, maybe happy, maybe sad. Whether I want to make a dark, moody, kind of more depressive black and white scene out of what I'm looking at, or if I want to try to create a happier scene.
Yeah.
But as an artist, I'm always, as an artist, balancing that side of stuff with the business aspects. What will sell? What do people want to buy? What's trending? What's popular? A lot of layers.
Okay. And talk to me about composition, right? So how do you kind of size up a scene and go, okay, this is the kind of composition I want based on what I'm looking at? What goes through your mind for that?
So and this is what I teach to anybody I do workshops, and when I do photo teaching, is when you're looking at doing especially wall art and prints, the most important thing to find is a foreground. And it's the least talked about aspect generally in most photographers, especially beginners. You're usually looking at the sky, you're looking at the waterfall. There's something in the center of the image, something in that middle ground that visually is actually what you think is the star of the show.
Yeah.
But when you really start applying psychology to art and what people relate to, you need a foundation, you need an anchor, a foreground, so that when you are viewing this large print on your wall, there is this legit presence that even though you aren't standing on the rock, you have this distance, this feeling that you could be, that this is what it looks like in real life.
Yeah.
So when I go to a location, not everything is massively planned out. I go to the lake, we have high water and low water, so there's all kinds of different foreground arrangements, but that's all I'm looking for. I need to find a foreground. The middle ground and the sky will take care of itself.
Yeah.
The sky will be what everybody talks about, but psychologically, subconsciously, you need to relate by that anchor, that foreground.
That foreground, it sounds like kind of the missing element for a lot of people. Like you say, they just get the waterfall, the sky, the sunset, and there's nothing in front to really, doesn't it almost lead your eye into the composition. So I've got something I can key in on at the front of the composition, and my eye tracks to the back of it. I don't know. Do you think about that at all, or am I way off?
Yeah. I mean, just as the old school rule of thirds element in photography, that comment is in relation to a two-dimensional image, dividing up the image into thirds. You need to do that three-dimensionally. You need a foreground, a middle ground, and a background.
Oh, I love that. Great tip.
And so I have always visualized my photography in a three-dimensional form, especially with light. As a snowboard and action sports photographer, we would utilize light to isolate the athlete, which essentially is in the middle of the composition. We have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. And the middle is always the athlete.
Yeah.
But you got to figure out how to make them stand out. And the best way to do so is to use light to create those layers. So I've always had a more three-dimensional kind of geometric mindset to my process.
I love that. What's harder? Is it harder to be technically proficient, or is it harder to do these other things you're talking about?
I think the technical stuff is just a learned skill. It's the exploration for me. I think it's finding the edges of what you can and can't do with either light, time manipulation, or technology. I think those are the three categories that I am always trying to find the edges of and push.
Light, time, and manipulation. Is that what you said?
Light, time, and technology.
And technology. Okay, gotcha.
So pushing the edges of the resolution of the camera in terms of the enlargement, or pushing the sensitivity of the camera for low light, things like that. Always kind of working on the more of the edges, the fringes of what's technically and aesthetically possible.
Yeah. And what do you mean by time?
In terms of the exposure.
Okay, you're talking about exposure.
If I say capture an image at, say, 500th of a second, an athlete running and they're frozen in time, that's one aspect to capture that moment. But maybe I want to do a 10-second exposure, and I want that object or whatnot to leave a streak through the scene. That tells a different story, and I have manipulated time differently by documenting it over a 10-second time period instead of a 500th of a second.
Okay. What can you tell people? I bet 99% of my listeners are sitting there with an iPhone or an Android, and they probably want to take better pictures when they're on their fishing vacations. What tips could you give us regular Joes?
Well, the first thing I mentioned before, foreground, that's always key. But when I teach fishing photography, and when I do it myself professionally, some of the staples that you do, number one important, always take your sunglasses off.
Yeah.
It is the number one thing that everybody forgets.
That's funny.
And you're so stoked, lifetime fish, yeah, it's sunny out, woohoo.
Yeah.
If you take those sunglasses off, you as the angler, and anybody you show that picture to, just like a portrait photographer, the emotion is in the eyes. There's going to be elation and excitement in your eyes, and your sunglasses cover that up. So take your sunglasses off. That's number one. Number two, you really want to get awesome with your level of photography. Take those sunglasses off and don't look at the camera. Look at the fish.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Now, if I'm an editor, or if I work at a company, or if I love fishing, what are we doing? We're about catching this trophy trout. We're about immortalizing this gigantic fish. The fish is the star of the show, not us. We're just the ugly guys holding the trophy. So
yeah.
put your attention on the trophy. So if you're looking at the fish, and the fish is right by the edge of the water and it's down below, any sportsman, any angler, there's no distraction. You're not looking at the eyes. You're looking at the fish. Everything is focused on that fish. And generally that fish is going to be kind of towards that foreground. So you kind of killed two birds with one stone.
Oh, neat. I find, I'm thinking like my mom, she's probably listening to this podcast, constantly cuts off people's heads and things. I mean, do you tell people, look at the edges of your frame and make sure that you're yeah, I don't know, framing it up correctly. That's pretty basic,
Yep.
but
One other great tip I'll say that I think is really key. If you're the photographer and you're about to capture your friend's lifetime fish or any fish for that matter,
yeah.
we got digital cameras. Start taking pictures. The minute you hand the net to the guy, the minute your buddy has the net, he is reaching for that fish. Start taking pictures. One,
Yeah.
there's proof that you caught a big fish and it was in the net. Boom. There's the proof. So that when, unfortunately, and it always happens, you pull that fish out of the net and he pulls that triple gainer backflip out of your hands before the camera guy is ready, you have proof that you caught the fish, see it was in the net, and then I fudged it and I dropped the fish. But
You got it.
take pictures. Start taking pictures as soon as possible.
Right. Oh my gosh. What about shooting wildlife? Because we talk about fish, that's wildlife, but what about, some of the other things you do, like bears, for instance?
A lot like the people and it's portrait photography. Wildlife is portrait photography, essentially. It's just that your subject might eat you. But it's eye contact. When you look at my bear photography, you'll notice that whenever possible, there is a direct contact. That bear's looking out of the corner of his eye at me. Huh. He's staring right at me.
Okay.
It's eye contact. You want that emotion. Because again, eyes tell a lot in emotion with people and animals.
Sure. And are you playing around with your f-stop quite a bit to get the background fuzz so that the bear's popping out of the photo a little bit more?
With most of the longer telephoto lenses, most of the lenses these days are like f5.6, unless you have a really high grade super pro lens where you can get like an f2.8 or an f4, but f5.6 to f8 generally is where I'm at. I'm using a 500 millimeter lens, 2 to 500 millimeter lens, often in that 500 range. And the bears are relatively close. So, f5.6, it's going to be sharp on the nose and it's going to start to get soft somewhere on the ears. So you can isolate the face pretty well, and if you really can, you want the focus point to be on those eyes, but and a lot of times the light is dim. It might be raining. So I'm shooting like 1200 ISO, maybe 1600 ISO. So I can achieve a shutter speed, at least 500th of a second so that it's going to be sharp. I'm not going to get camera shake.
Right. I'm wondering if you've had some experiences with photographing photography that, really stick out in your mind that you could share.
I have an image I show in the gallery, and it's a personal favorite called Grizzly Portrait. And I have a fair amount of portraits, but this was the first of what I consider to be a successful portrait.
Yeah.
In the sense that it was so close and so sharp, so tight. You can see the blue sky, the white puffy clouds reflecting in the bear's eyes, and almost make out my raft reflecting in his eyes. Like, I was close. I actually have a photo of me taking that photo, which is really, really helpful to show people perspective. But that's an image that was really, really cool, just because I remember the interaction I had with that bear.
That's awesome.
And then a new bear image I shot the last day of last season. That's the image of the year. Every year I think I walk with one bear image where there was an interaction. There was a series of moments where we were working together, and
yeah, he doesn't know it, but you were, huh?
Yep. I'm trying to get that emotion, I bet you could do some really funny behind the scenes of me photographing a bear and then overlay some like fashion guys, some Zoolander talk about like, oh, work it. Yeah. Like, I'm not thinking that in my head, but that's what we're doing. Me and the bears, they're trying to get by me and I'm trying to get a good picture and elicit some emotion.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really neat. Abe, before we go here, man, it's been great talking to you. I'm kind of curious because you're up there in Alaska for several months away from your family. And I don't know, I always kind of dream about, man, I'm just going to get in my car. I'm going to go out west. I'm going to spend a month out west. But I know by the first weekend, I'm going to be missing my family. How do you do it up there? Because I know you've got a family. Is that hard?
It is hard. I don't think anybody's going to lie to you. It's always hard to be away from the family, and I put that aside because other than that aspect, the job is great. I truly love what I do, so I don't feel like I'm working. My kids get to see that, and I hope that they will take that as a lesson in life to do what they love to do.
Yeah, Dad's working hard.
And then I get to, when I am here, I'm here. I do make enough money that it allows me to not be gone during essentially that school year
Yeah,
time, and so I can be there for soccer. I might actually coach the soccer team next year, and
that's awesome.
I can help on those field trips and things. So I think we balance it out. I've raised my kids, my wife obviously with me, that we've taught them, that life isn't free and it costs money, and these are the choices one makes. And as they got older, they're 8 and 10 now. They kind of have an understanding, and for them this year, for them, because I am gone so long. Usually I'm gone only a month or two. They're going to come visit me this year for a week in July.
Cool.
I have been anxious and waiting for this opportunity since the day my kids were born. Take them to Alaska. My wife has traveled all over the world, but never to Alaska. She was a river guide as well. We met as river guides. So I'm excited to show them small airplanes, show them the bears, show them what I do and why I love it.
Good for you. That's fantastic. My wife's uncle was an admiral in the Navy. He's now 80 something, but he was the youngest rear admiral in the Navy. He did really well,
Oh,
loved the
cool.
Navy. And he would go to sea for 6 months. And it was just this rhythm that he and his family got into. We called him Toby. Toby's off at sea for 6 months. He's shipped out and you just aren't going to see him. And I think the goodbyes are tough. And the homecomings were amazing. But boy, was that family is so close, and maybe a little bit of being away can actually draw you closer. I don't know.
I think so. My dad was a traveling salesman the latter half of my youth growing up at home, but he was gone Monday through Friday and on the road, and sometimes gone on the weekends, but mostly around. And so I think that put us, a little bit closer. We favored those weekend times more. And
Yeah, right.
but then as a young man, I had to learn how to do some stuff on my own. And I remember having to dig into his toolbox, try to build something or whatever out of some wood. And I think there was, good learning in that process. But it's something we've just eased into with my wife. It's not something I ever thought I would do, but I always have to thank my wife for letting me do what I do and that I love to do, and both as a photographer and being gone.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I agree with you. Same here. Before we go, I almost forgot. Could you give us in a minute or two that story of those bears sniffing your client's feet? I think you were waiting for a plane or something.
Yeah.
I got to hear that.
Second to last day of the season last year, we, tough season, lots of weather, and our ride was late. So we called into the lodge. We carry satellite phones, and they said, we're trying. We're watching the weather. I think it's going to clear out. We'll get you before dark. And so we ended up literally kind of hunkering into the pea gravel outside of that lake, just get out of the wind and warm up, and fell asleep. And sure enough, woke up and something was just off. Opened my eyes, and there's a cub, about a 1.5-year-old cub, sniffing my toes.
A cub.
Mom,
oh my
down
gosh.
the beach. Another cub is coming up, and I just have to nudge Liam, hey, and he wakes up, looks, and we're like, do we wake the guests up? No. Just. So we start wiggling our feet a little bit, and the cub kind of like, whoa, like that. And cub kind of makes a little noise and runs away. And then two of our guests were napping with us, and they kind of wake up. But at that point, the bear goes the other way. And some of the coolest dudes I've had as guests, really awesome guys, 4 guys from kind of the Midwest, Salt Lake area. And they loved it. Great experience. But yeah, so that's Alaska.
How cool was the mom about her cubs being over by you guys?
She's watching, and she knows that they're in for a kick to the face. And I don't know if you have kids, but sometimes as a parent, you just gotta let the kids learn the hard way.
Right. Yeah,
And
the stove's
so
hot.
we see the mama bears do that a fair amount. You know,
is that right?
they say, "Hey, don't go sniffing those humans." Wow, watch this, Mom, watch this, you know, and then boom, they get a rock to the face, or they, you know, and boom, they learn, they don't do that again.
That's a great story. All right, I always ask my guests about the food in the area where you fish, but I imagine there's probably not a lot of watering holes and restaurants in your area other than the lodge. Tell us about the food at the lodge. How is the food?
Boy, it's top notch. I think every lodge will tell you that it's great, and honestly, I think most lodges are great. I've been to numerous, but what I like about our lodge, our chef, his name is Patrick, and what I think he does differently than most lodges is we don't have a weekly menu. A lot of lodges, it's easy to just say, okay, it's chicken on Monday and it's pork on Tuesday. We're going to finish it out with some king crab and steak. But he's a very diverse and trained chef. So sometimes he'll just be, hey, let's go Japanese tonight, or let's do a Japanese week. Let's do a Mexican night or a Mexican week. Like, so as we're there for 15 to 17 weeks. So it's really cool for us to get new food all the time. Our guests usually have a very unique experience. And if they're returning guests, which we have a lot of, they know that it's going to be a different menu than what it was last year.
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
And that's cool. That's unique. It keeps it fresh. I think it keeps our chef motivated, you know, because he's not in that rut. It's not the same thing all the time. And
yeah, right.
We look for that at the lodge as far as staffing. You know, we want guides and chefs. We want everybody to love what they do, you know, not do it because you have to. And
yeah,
the crew that we have, everybody is really passionate about what they do. We're just happy to share the experience, and you know, it's always cliche sounding, but we wouldn't be there without our guests, and we really appreciate them and love teaching them.
Well, it looks like a top-notch place from what I can tell talking to you on the website. Intricate Bay Lodge, folks, in Bristol Bay, Alaska. Abe, thank you so much for being on the show. It was great talking to you.
Anytime, Steve. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I did want to do a quick shout out to Brian Oakland from gotfishing.com. He's the one that connected us here, and Brian's a booking agent. I know you go through a lot of booking agents. He's one of them. How can people get in touch with you in the lodge if they've got questions or want to book a trip?
They can reach out to the lodge directly. They can always reach out to Brian Oakland at Got Fishing. We are an Orvis endorsed lodge. You can find us on most major booking agents, the Yellow Dog and Flywater.
Okay.
We are only represented by people we trust, by people we've hosted, so they've experienced what we have to offer. So you'll hear it straight from the horse's mouth for any of our agents, you know. And we're a tight knit community. I've worked directly with guys as guides who now work for multiple booking agents, and we all just want the best for each other. So I try not to pick a loyalty, because I think I have a tight fishing buddy that works at every single agency.
Yeah,
and everybody does a great job.
All right. Abe, I wish you extraordinary success in all your adventures to follow. And folks, thank you for listening. We'll be sure to post. Well, I've got a ton of amazing pictures of, Abe's fantastic photography. We're going to be putting out on Facebook and Instagram and on the Destination Angler website, our new website. So go check that out. It's really fantastic photography. As always, you can DM me or email me with comments and suggestions at shake50@gmail.com. Hey, if you like the show, please share it with a buddy. As always, our music is by Brothers Fountain. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again soon. Tight lines, everybody.
Well, I'll go from the land to the shining sea. But I know there's more to life than what the eye can see.